Rock Jocks does not express the views of any Mountain West Conference members or their affiliates.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
It's time to talk about the horrendous weekend that we just endured. But there is still hope. This is Rock Jocks.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of Rock Jocks. I'm Steve Schwartzman.
I'm Preston Croshaw.
And we got a big show ahead for you. We've got a little bit of carnage to adjust. You ever watch, Preston, I got a question for you. You ever watch coverage of like a national, like natural storm?
Yeah.
Like a hurricane, like Hurricane Adamson or something like that. And there's that reporter who's forced to go out, talk to all the people who've survived the carnage, look over everything in wake. I feel like that reporter right now. It was a rough weekend for the conference.
It was a very rough weekend. It was a massacre, and we had to endure it. And you know what? It's kind of just time to look back and say, this is what happened.
I gotta say, well, we're gonna get into a little commentary on this past weekend, but just to give you a rundown of what we're gonna look at, we're gonna have some heart to hearts with some of our teams. We're gonna have some father-son talk with some of our teams and the struggles that they had. Then we're going to break a little bit. It's time to have some uni talk. We have some fun uniforms in the conference. We're going to have a little uniform debate. Who's got the best unis in the conference? And then we're going to break down this weekend's games. We're going to start with our Goliath alerts. Preston's going to break down how Goliath alerts are going to work for us. Then we're going to give you some quick snap updates, just a couple games to look out for. Then we're going to talk about our game of the week. We got a couple awesome questions from Ask the Jocks on Twitter. And we're going to talk about what we learned. And then we're going to leave you on your merry way. Sounds like a good show to me.
Yes, it does. Let's get it started. And we just have to have a little talk with some of our teams because it was a rough weekend. So I will start off talking to you, Broncos and Rainbow Warriors. What happened? Your offense has disappeared. And in one case, Warriors, really? 4 interceptions, Taylor Graham. Your QB rating was terrible. It was in the single digits. I understand that there's a lot of things going on. You know, you've had a rough go at it. There's some bad history for the Rainbow Warriors. But Broncos, you should know better. I was expecting great things, and you fell flat on your face. So, just pick it up, boys. Really, pick it up. Things have to get better. You have to move the ball, and you have to just represent our household, our conference, with some pride.
The first of my sons I need to sit down and talk to definitely have to be my two boys, New Mexico and UNLV. Listen, Lobos, Rebels, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I expected a lot more of you, and both of you seem to have so much potential. It really seemed like you were going to start things with such a bang for this family. And you know what? I just really think it's time that you started to come to terms with what you can do and try to improve. Listen, UNLV, Tim Cornette, you have so much ahead of you. And 80 yards just isn't going to do that for us. All right, and you know, Nick Sherry can throw for all the yards he wants, but if you're not willing to pick it up and support him, I don't see how it's at all possible. I wouldn't even get to start about the fact that you need smart defense. And that's the only thing that's going to get you through this. And listen, Lobos, it pains me to say it, but Casey, middle name carrier, born and bred and named to be a running back, to only submit yourself to 54 yards. And listen, your quarterback played with some serious heart. 118 rushing yards is something to speak of. And it's very impressive. But you could have shouldered that for him. He had a job to do. He was a quarterback. And you could have supported him. Look, we're not upset with you. Tough losses, but we need you. We need you to push through. We need both of you to step up. We can't have this week to week. It's hurting the family. It's hurting the conference.
I really look at you, my Fresno State Bulldogs, and I say, yeah, you pulled it out this week, but how do I know? How do I know that we're not just going to find you dead in some ditch next weekend or the weekend after that? It's scary for a parent to have to go through that kind of heartache and waiting up late for just the boys to come home. So when you mess with a team like Rutgers and you're getting a little bit close to that curfew, you're pushing the limit a little bit, it scares us. It really does. I look at you, Derek Carr, and you know what? You did great. You really pulled it out. But the defense has got to be on your side. You have to be able to support your quarterback. Just as Steve was saying, you have to be able to support him. So we look for you guys to improve. You can't scare me like that. You can't scare me like that.
San Diego State, you know what, I'm not going to mince words with you, okay? You really wampus the cat on this one. And it's just, as parents, it's like, where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? We tried to raise you to be a successful football team, to stand up against any team from any conference, and you couldn't survive an FCS school? I mean, Mr. Moema, you have so much ahead of you, and to only succumb to 17 yards just makes no sense to me. But who I really need to look at is you, Mr. Dingwell. 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions against Eastern Illinois. You want to know who outplayed you, Mr. Dingwell? You want to know who didn't throw any interceptions and who threw for 3 touchdowns and 361 yards? Jimmy Garoppolo. And you know how I feel about you running amok with Jimmy Garoppolo. Really, that is the name of a villain on a Welcome Back Kotter episode, and you allowed him to outplay you, a member of the Mountain West Conference, of a big-time D1 school, and you got outplayed by a player named Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't even want to think about it. I mean, how do I know that next week you don't end up in a ditch somewhere? That you end up lost and confused? And listen, Mr. Dingwell, listen, SDSU, there is so much that you can accomplish. I mean, Aztecs, you were the co-conference champion last year. Everything was looking up. And look, who knows what stands in the way of you doing that again, but you need to shape up. We need to see more. Okay, Jimmy Garoppolo is gone. He's left the neighborhood, and we're not going to be seeing him again. And what are you going to do to prove to us that you were going to shape up and do your job? We expect more of you, Aztecs. Don't wampus the cat on us again.
I have some mixed words for the Aggies of Utah State. I really, really admired some of the things that you did this past weekend. Chucky Keaton was truly an amazing quarterback in this game. And I look to him and say, good job. Way to go. You played your heart out. You played injured. You brought this team so close. There were some things that we did not approve of and that really need to change. But things are looking up. Keep your heads up. Keep your chin up. And I think that we have some great things in store.
There was a beam of light I wanted to shed on this week. And it's over in Laramie. Oh, Brett Smith. My brother, my lover, my friend. 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, able to mitigate 2 interceptions, and only be within 3 points of beating the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Brett, you played your heart out. You worked. You even had Nebraska reeling in the first half. You had a lead for a while, and you had an amazing comeback that just fell short. You know, it's always hard to see things go that way, and it's hard to see things fall short. But you know what? Me as a father, I look at a Brett Smith, and I realize the future is bright. So you keep fighting, Brett. You keep stopping off at Taco John's just across the way from the stadium in Laramie. You keep heading over to smell the brown-eyed Susans, and you put your arms around all of those fellow pokes out in Wyoming, and you keep dreaming because you're getting somewhere. We're proud of you, Brett. You keep fighting.
Boys, we look forward. We will try to forget and move along from this week. We trust in you.
All right, Preston, so we had a little bit of fun there, just trying to get an opportunity to go through what was honestly a pretty abysmal weekend for the conference. We had a rough go. We had a rough outing by everyone. If you could sum up the performance this week in all sense of analysis and journalism in one word, how would you rate the conference in one word?
Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
That is my word. I think that this week really couldn't have gone worse. When I was checking the scores and looking over the games and checking the box scores and stuff, it was like a nightmare. I was about this close to using the word face palm, because that's kind of how I feel, just putting my face right in my palm, but nightmare is my descriptive word.
For me, I go underwhelming. And I say that because I feel like we didn't necessarily lose on every turn this weekend. We did pull off some good victories. I just don't feel like there was any point that we really stuck out and went that these guys are a force to be reckoned with. And I do feel like that potential is there with so many teams in this conference, and I just feel like a lot of teams underplayed themselves and simply got outplayed. I mean, you look at Utah State, and you look at moments where they simply they got outplayed. Lapses of judgment. They had an onside kick in the third quarter that they were not expecting. There were moments like that with a lot of teams. But then at the same time, those games that could have pushed us naturally over the realm of going, at least we had a successful weekend. Games like Boise State and SDSU, I guess I just don't understand it. It just seems odd to me, because it's one thing to say that a team like Boise State may lose to a Washington in week one, may get outplayed, but to lose in the fashion that they did and to watch their offense play the way that they did, it didn't really inspire much. And so it's hard to say that we push forward a lot of excitement. I still think that there's a lot of potential. I still think we're going to have amazing success out of the conference. But this first week was really hard to watch. It was underwhelming.
It was an eye opener, and it was hard. It was hard to kind of come to terms to reality. And honestly, I think that if there was a week of bad luck experienced by any conference, it was this past week. You had just freak things happening. Minnesota returning a 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Getting a pick six in the same fashion was just kind of a freak event. You mentioned the onside kick against Utah for Utah State. Those are really tough things, and for that to happen, it's disappointing. And we look forward with some hope, like you said, there is potential, but it was tough to endure.
So, just really quick, Preston, do you give up on the Mountain West Conference? Are we not as good as we think we are?
I don't give up. I think that we have things to fix, quite obviously, but I'm not going to give up.
I absolutely can't give up on these guys. I honestly feel like a lot of these games were eye-openers. We're still going to see a lot of success. The one thing I take from this week is maybe we had some bad teams. We had a slew of great players.
I agree.
I think that's going to set a foundation for us. So we'll see how that goes. But until that point, we're going to take a break from some analysis. We're excited to talk about next weekend. But I just got a bone to pick, and I'm ready for a good old-fashioned debate. Preston, best uniform in the conference.
Best uniform. See, there's a lot of good uniforms. And I look at Utah State. I really like their uniforms. I like the uniforms at Air Force. They're classic, the blue and white. But honestly, the best uniform this year has got to be Fresno State's all black.
Huh.
I think that the Fresno State blackout look is so sweet. They have the chrome on the helmets, and just it's sleek and it's sharp. When I saw that logo on the side of their helmets, the simplified bulldog. So usually their logo is the full body of the bulldog, but then they just simplified it to the head and put that in chrome on a black helmet. Is just so nice. And then you've got the numbers on the other side. It's a beautiful look. It's a beautiful look.
So just tell me really quick. Is this a normal uni of theirs, or is this kind of a specialty thing?
Well, it's a
when do they wear
specialty
this?
thing.
So when do they wear this?
I don't think that they have announced when they're going to wear the black jersey, but if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about that.
See, here's where I think I got the upper hand. And I enjoy a good specialty uni just like everyone else, but I got to go with a team that has a solid blue-collar, everyday, everyman uniform that they wear every single week that just screams class. And that's the Spartans at SJSU. I'm in love with these uniforms. It is the perfect mix of modern style with some classic nuance. One big thing I love about it, I love the letterhead, just the SJSU in blue lettering, in the block lettering. I absolutely love that. I love the simplistic coloring. Probably my favorite of what they currently have is that yellow jersey of theirs, where it's just that straight golden like burnt yellow with the numbers, and then the it's got the blue down the sides from the shoulders. Oh, just a beautiful look. And a beautiful helmet. The one thing I'm going to say about SJSU is if they still had, I think it was a year, maybe 2 years ago, they had a blue jersey it was reversed from the blue and the yellow, and it had the blue with the yellow lettering. Oh man, look up pictures of that. That thing is gorgeous. But I can't help but disagree with you, Preston, because this is a uni that they bring home every single week. Absolutely gorgeous. It's a team that's on the rise, and they look the part.
Yeah, I like the yellow. I think the yellow is very different, but I can't get over how wonderful the black and the chrome and the red, it all works for me. So I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this.
Okay, fine. If you want to take the one-night stand on that uni and don't want to commit to the girl next door that is the SJSU uni, that's fine. Both beautiful uniforms, though.
Yes.
Gotta say. And with that, I'm ready to talk some more football.
Let's do it.
If nothing else, it's going to have football. So something really quick that we're going to talk about is we want to do some analysis on all of the games that come up every weekend, and we want to start with what we call our Goliath alerts. I'm going to throw it over to Preston. He's going to explain how those go, and then we're gonna get to those alerts really quick.
The Goliath alert really just is letting everybody know that one of our conference teams is going to be taking on a quote-unquote power conference team. So these games are big time. They can get us a lot of exposure. And so when we give you a Goliath alert, make sure to watch that game and keep tabs on how our team is doing so that we can prove that we stand to the big boys and we're not afraid of them.
So when you hear this, it means it's time for a Goliath alert. So get ready for that alert. You'll hear that every episode, and then we'll start talking. At least every episode that we have a Goliath alert.
Exactly.
It's pretty close to every week. We've got some good games coming up. We actually have 4 Goliath alert games this week.
Yes, we do.
4 games. And let's start with Hawaii, Oregon State. In your opinion, Preston, you know how David had his like sack, his satchel full of rocks? What rocks does Hawaii have and need to take down the Goliath in Oregon State this weekend?
Well, I think that the rock that they already have in their satchel is defense. I think their defense proved that they can play with the big boys last week against USC. They had a safety. Their linebackers performed very well. Obviously, that rock could be a little bit more streamlined, but that's their power. You know, that's the one thing that they already have. The rock that they have to pick up is Taylor Graham being consistent. I mean, last week against USC, he completed 16 passes, okay, and he threw for 4 interceptions. So you look at, he essentially had 20 passes caught, right?
Mm-hmm.
20% of those were caught by USC defenders.
That's a fun stat.
Yeah, that is not good. So 1/5 of the things being caught out of his hand were being caught by USC defenders. So those are the 2 rocks that, well, they have one and they need another.
I think the interesting thing to know with this game, too, is with USC, you were trying to contain. I think with Oregon State, you're trying to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big rock for them to pull. But yeah, that's the rocks we think it'll take for Hawaii to outdo the Goliath in Oregon State.
All right, next Goliath alert. Arizona against our Rebels from UNLV. What stones do they need to beat the Wildcats?
I honestly feel like Nick Sherry is a positive stone for this team. Given how they played this last week, it is impressive to see him throw for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he has a lot more in him. I feel there's a lot of potential there. and I think that this is a team that he can play up pretty well against. And honest, I think there's one big rock they need if they have any chance of playing up against Arizona, and it's tempo. We saw from the Arizona's bowl game last year that this team can score and score quick.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it really comes down to tempo. Can they maintain the speed that Arizona has? Can they maintain a defense and keep them conditioned? I think conditioning is a big thing for this game, and if they can maintain that, I say it's one of those games that comes down to numbers, and if they can stay within 7 to 10 points come at the half and maintain that tempo, they can start to slowly work things their way, and maybe you have a player in Nick Sherry that can do well. On top of that, Tim Cornette, still very talented running back. You have no idea what he can pull together, but we're going to need to see a lot of improvement out of him and some consistency out of Sherry and see them condition their defense to maintain themselves against Arizona.
I agree. I think that the weapon that they have is Tim Cornette. And if they can help him break out, because I think that Minnesota was really keyed in on Cornette. And so if they can break him out, then that is a weapon that they can definitely use. What they need to improve on is special teams and being able to hold on to the ball. I already mentioned that Minnesota returned a kickoff for a touchdown. There was also some plays where Minnesota scored from not having an offensive possession. So if you can limit those mistakes, they had a pick 6, Minnesota did. If you can limit those mistakes, shore up your special teams, that's definitely a winnable game.
Next Goliath alert, we've got San Diego State heading out to Columbus to play the Ohio State Buckeyes. What do we got?
I love our Wampus Cats, but it really just looks like this Goliath is just a little bit too big for our David.
You know what? And for the record, this is not a knock on SDSU and them losing to an FCS school. It's Ohio State, and it's just so hard. I mean, you want to talk about an amazingly coached squad.
Yeah.
Is there a better? Honestly, is there a better football coach right now in all of football, let alone college football, than Urban Meyer? Mm-hmm. Look at how he's turned his teams around. Look at what he's done with Ohio State. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but
no, I think that this game is kind of in the books already. It's at Ohio State. It's going to be a tough game for the Aztecs. Adam Dingwell has got to be better. He's got to be better. And Adam Moema, man, get out of the teens in your yardage. You've got to be able to get more yards than that. So if they can just improve, then I'd consider it a victory.
I think some rocks that could possibly make it help. They need a turnover in some form.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some sort of way to kill momentum. Adam Dingwell needs to get the ball to the red zone, and Moema needs to get the ball in the end zone. And I really think it could. I'm not looking for Adam Moema to get a ton of yards. I am looking for him to be effective in the red zone and find ways to get the ball through the goal line. If he can do that, there's a chance of consistency there. But honestly, in my opinion, this comes down to find some way to outcoach Urban Meyer. I think of this potentially as it would have to take an effort, much like Boise against Oklahoma from several years ago, where they have to pull together a trick play or find some hole that no one was looking for to really kill some momentum to confuse Ohio State's side. Chances are extremely slim, and most teams in the country, this is extremely slim. But especially for a team that just looks like they have a lot of making up to do right now, it's really going to take a whole cargo bag of rocks to make that work.
I agree. Our last Goliath alert, and this is our unanimous decision, the most winnable and the most exciting Goliath alert of this week. We're going to go with our Spartans going to Stanford to take on the Cardinal.
I think the David in this Goliath situation, though Goliath's 9 feet tall, I think our David's 7 feet tall. I really think SJSU matches up decently against Stanford. And the biggest rock, a boulder inside of that sack,
is our David.
Is David Fales. It's a David. It absolutely is. A good call.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it. If he can play up to the snuff that what he has, this is a heroic performance for him. And I honestly think he's capable of it. You look at his ability. You look at having Noel Grigsby with a potential to catch balls out there. I think they have what they need on that side of things. To me, it really all comes down to defense. And you look at Stanford that poses an extremely balanced and extremely strong force on offense, especially out of their running game. I really think they need to find some way to really punch this team in the mouth early. They need to stymie the running game. They need to make sure that that's something that can happen. I really think that that's something they're capable of doing. And if they can slow them down even a little bit, they have the offensive tools to really blow this Stanford defense out of the water. I have every single bit of belief in that, in them being able to knock off the 5th team in the country.
I look at David Fales, and I'll just say this. David is a rock slinger. And, yeah, I know. That was a pretty good pun. He is the most accurate quarterback in the nation. And if there's any way to take down a Goliath, it's be accurate. So when you look at this game, yeah, Noel Grigsby, you mentioned him. He was a great wide receiver. But honestly, I look at Chandler Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Chandler Jones came out and had a great game against, Sacramento State. But 8 receptions for 130 yards. He can get downfield really fast and make those big plays. I agree with you. The defense has got to stop the Cardinal O. It's going to be a very tight game. Last year it was a touchdown. This year it's probably going to be very similar. This is a heated rivalry. El Camino Real is going to be burning with some vitriol and rivalry this week. So everybody this week, make sure you wear your Spartan yellow and blue. Cheer on our conference to beat the Goliath. Take them down.
Yeah, so every single week at the end of our Goliath watch, we are going, at the end of our Goliath alerts, we are going to encourage us to get behind our conference. So during that game, we're all Spartan fans. Let's get behind our guys. Let's get behind our David and beat the Goliath at Stanford. I think it's possible. This is going to be a fun weekend.
Absolutely. So. Now let's break down the rest of the conference schedule. It's going to be just really quick, bang, bang, boom kind of format. Run it down. UT Martin at Boise State. That's pretty much a, pencil it in. It's a win. UT Martin doesn't pose that great of a threat.
For a really quick second, I thought you said they were going to win. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's an easy BSU win. You got to hope that gives them confidence moving forward.
Then we've got Idaho at Wyoming. What do you think about that one?
I think Brett Smith plays big. That's a home game for them. That's kind of a big coming out opportunity for them out in Laramie. New look of the stadium. Big things behind Brett. Not huge of a threat at Idaho. I think that's an easy Wyoming win.
The Laramie fans are going to get out in force. They're going to get behind their team after a really great performance at Nebraska. It's their home opener. They've got a new field that looks fantastic.
Oh, it's awesome.
War Memorial Stadium has never looked better. They're going to get them up and really, I think that Idaho doesn't stand a chance against the Cowboys.
CSU heading out to Tulsa. What do you think?
That's going to be a tough game. Tulsa's always a tough team. They're always competitive. CSU really didn't look that good against Colorado. This will be a very tough game. I'm having a hard time predicting a winner here. I think that Tulsa wins a close one.
I go home field advantage on this is what I think. I think we're evenly matched teams here, and I think that it's going to be home field advantage. I think you go to a Southern crowd, that's going to be hard to see, and I see Tulsa squeaking that one out.
All right, El Paso. We're going out to El Paso for New Mexico at UTEP. This is a little bit of a rivalry game. I really hope that the Lobos can improve from last week. Those Texas teams are feisty, as was proven against UTSA this past weekend. I look for the Lobos to rebound and beat the Miners in a close game.
I personally believe this is a good eye-opener for New Mexico. I see them squeaking this one out simply because they were able to take a really rough first half in last week, and I think that they start bigger this time. I think Casey Carrier is going to get a lot better out of the backfield. That's going to give Cole Gauch a good opportunity to really make some work out of his arm, and I think we're going to see a successful outing out of the Lobos.
UC Davis at Nevada. Cody Fajardo, he's going to go nuts in this game. This is an angry Nevada team after getting pummeled by UCLA. They're going to say, you know what, we're not going to take this from a smaller school. I think the Wolfpack take it pretty easily.
I think this is a Cody Fajardo coming out party. I couldn't agree more. Cal Poly at Fresno.
Derek Carr is going to kill people. That's all I have to say.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, Derek Carr is going to do things, and they're going to win. I don't know that we can say more there.
All right,
and
now
by the
we
looks
get
of it, that's our schedule.
That is our schedule.
Except for
our game of the week.
Our Mountain West game of the week.
Which happens to be the Mountain West Conference first game of the season. It is Utah State at Air Force.
Air Force. First conference game of the year. We're posing a pesky triple option team against the Utah State Aggies, who are coming off the heels of a tough loss, but an impressive performance by Chucky Keaton, who, in my opinion, played like a hero, going down with a fight. This could be a really exciting game. I think this is a great way to really start off our conference and start off the year. Where do you see this game panning out?
This game is going to be it's going to be very interesting. I think that, honestly, Vegas has got it right this time. They're picking Utah State as a 10-point favorite over the Falcons. You look at Utah State's run defense against Utah, and it was fantastic, especially in the red zone. I think that the Falcons are going to have a hard time getting into the end zone. So Utah State will force a lot of field goals from Air Force. I don't know that USAF has enough firepower to get around those fantastic linebackers that Utah State has. You look at Kyler Fackrell, he was a beast last week against Utah. So was Zach Vigil, Jake Dowdy, and your man, the younger Vigil brother.
The little boy, Nick Vigil. Love him to death.
So I think that this game is going to be hard fought, obviously. But in the end, the Aggies will take it by, 10 or 14.
You know what? You got to give credit where credit is due with Air Force's running game. I love John Lee. I was impressed by John Lee's performance. 11.8 yards per carry, ran for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brome Hart did a good job, too. I do have to tell a story. When I was listening to audio on this game, I heard they brought up Brome Hart's name, and I swear in my life I heard Bret Hart. And I was like, no way, they recruited the Hitman. This is going to be fantastic. And I went, oh, it's not Bret Hart. And I got disillusioned. But they have a solid two-back set. That triple option can be very effective. I think there's a lot that they can accomplish there. I just feel like as far as linebackers go, you can't get deeper than Utah State. I think they have a lot to prove and a lot to open up. In my opinion, Air Force's pass defense has a lot to desire. And if Utah State proved anything this past week, it was the effectiveness of the wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all across the board. You look at a young guy like JoJo Natson and his abilities. You look at Brandon Swindle. You look at Travis Van Leeuwen, who did a great job. They proved that those guys can work. And I don't see Air Force having any sort of potential threat. This all being said, though, Preston, what does Air Force have that possibly could see us being wrong here?
Well, it's always hard to know what to expect when a team beats up on an FCS team like Colgate. We didn't learn a lot from this victory. We did learn that, well, we didn't learn this. We just saw it proven over and over that Air Force can run the ball. They have Brome Hart. You know, they have the juniors. I love the juniors. Lee Jr. and Hart Jr. running the ball, 130 and 101 yards each. And then you have another running back in Lacoste. And then this is a cool little runner-up for name of the year, Rushing. Yeah, his name is Rushing. Yeah.
Do we have a first name on Rushing here?
His first name is Devin Rushing. He is
no way.
Yeah. Devin Rushing. Very cool. Casey Carrier, Devin Rushing.
They play each other this year, by the way.
Yes,
just so you know.
So
Rushing and Carrier head to head
are going head to head. I think that if they are able to open up their playbook just a little bit and pass just a few plays to where that Utah State defense has to take a few steps back, they really could open up their option and be dangerous.
We've got to see more than 7 pass attempts out of Air Force. It absolutely has to happen. There's got to be some way for them to open up opportunities in the passing game. It really comes down to that. They've got to find some way to open up some holes for the running game, because if you just run solely on your running game, what you're doing is forcing that entire defensive set to just put a stone wall up on the defensive line, and then there's really no way for them to upend that.
Yeah, and with their passing game, Cale Pearson went down near the end of this game. The question is, can we get a good QB performance out of Jaleel Owini, who is their backup quarterback? He's just a sophomore. Can he play well, or is Cale Pearson going to be healthy? You know, if he's not healthy, we may not even see as many passing attempts as they had against Colgate, which would be a serious problem.
So lots of options here. I think Air Force has some options, but I think we both feel pretty sure how this is going to go. But it is our game of the week, so we're going to be just a little bit more specific. So Preston, I'm going to ask you not only who's going to win, what's your score on this game?
My score on this game, that is a fantastic question. I see Air Force having to kick a lot of field goals, so I'm going to go with 18-31 for Utah State. 18-31.
18-31. All right, that's a pretty solid synopsis there. I see in a very effective offensive day in the passing game for Chucky Keaton and the Aggies.
Wait, not 18. Sorry. Let me recalculate this.
I'll let you go through that.
16.
We'll do this.
16-31.
Sometimes
Sorry.
math will do that to you.
Yes, it will.
I got to tell you. Math will do that to you. I really see an effective showing out of the Aggie offense this coming up week. I'm gonna go 38-13 Aggies on this.
Oof.
I really feel like there's an opportunity for Chucky to throw 3 or more touchdowns against this pass defense. But a guy that I also see having a big out for himself is going to be Joe Hill. I think this is an opportunity for him to honestly try and get some opportunities to make some big plays. I see him getting into the end zone at least once during this game. For me, Air Force in that triple option, I think, can squeak in a score or two, but it's going to come down to what can they do to maintain their running game, but I just don't see them being able to keep up with a tempo and a defense like Utah State. So, yeah, 38-13 final score.
All right. Well, I like the picks. Honestly, we chose that as the game of the week, mostly just because it's the first Mountain West Conference.
I'm so
game
excited for conference play.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can talk about out-of-conference play all that we want, but really what matters is in conference.
Let's do it. So it starts this weekend.
What do we have next, Steve?
Well, we finally got a chance to check it out, but it's time to head over to Twitter and pay some homage to our listeners. Of course, always get on Twitter and follow us at MWC Rock Jocks. Send us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your feelings, your pictures of Wampus cats or any other fun pictures that you would like to send us. But most importantly, it's always fun to ask the Jocks. And it's time for the Ask the Jocks to answer from the Jocks. It sounded a lot funnier in my head. I'm just going to kick it over to you, Preston, before I dig this hole even deeper.
All right. So I've got 2 tweets from Tim Hansen. His first question is, who should be more worried after one game, and who had the worst week this weekend? I'm going to just say that SDSU, for both of those questions, followed very closely by Boise State.
I'm going to push it on the other end and go Boise State. I just feel like they had a lot more to speak on. And I feel like SDSU is in a situation that they really have no choice but to see kind of a beat down this week. You got to hope that there's more, but I just expected more out of Boise. They were supposed to come in firing. So
yeah, we all did, and to see that happen, their worst loss in 8 years, I believe, since Chris Peterson got there. So that's hard to see.
But you've also got to be honest, even though they pulled out a win, you can't take Fresno out of that discussion.
That's true.
Because they squeaked by, and this was a team that was supposed to come in firing, and you've got to hope that they have something in their onslaught to push a lot harder in the future, because if they're going to play defensively at that level, you can't say that they're a lock now to win the division.
I agree. Their defense has got to step up, and they should be very concerned about that.
Exactly.
We'll actually get to whether or not they'll win the division in a later tweet question. All right. Brett Brinkerhoff tweets in, asks us, is this first week a sign of things to come for the MWC? I don't think so. I think that a lot of the teams are going to figure things out and be a lot more competitive than we saw them in week one. Things to come that I would expect more of: Brett Smith, Chucky Keaton, and Derek Carr, and David Fales.
And Cody Fajardo.
Well,
Who knows, right?
Cody didn't set much of a precedent in week one, but more things to come, absolutely, for those quarterbacks. On the negative notes, I don't think so. I think that there is still hope, and there's going to see a lot of improvement.
My feeling, on top of all of the positives, to be completely frank, it can't get this bad again.
Yeah.
To be honest, this was an abysmal week overall, and it just can't get this bad again. I really see us picking up, learning from this, and seeing some success.
All right, we've got a question coming from TK311. His Twitter tag is Ogden Aggie, so this is a Utah State-centered question. After seeing Boise get thrashed, I really liked the Aggies' chances to win the Mountain Division. Am I a little too confident? I think that a little too confident, but just a little bit. Really, if we were to pin Week 1 Boise State versus Week 1 Utah State, I think that Utah State wins that game quite handily.
Absolutely. In my opinion, it still is going to come down to their matchup, Utah State, Boise State. I think that game is going to determine who wins that division. But in my opinion, it's now officially 50-50. I think Boise exposed a lot of weaknesses on their offense that Utah State very easily can handle, and I think Utah State stepped up to the occasion on offense enough to show that they have what it takes to be successful and had some weaknesses that they can very easily mitigate. I feel like these are extremely evenly matched teams, and in my opinion, it's all going to come down to that matchup.
After week 1, I'm going to say the chances of each team winning the Mountain Division is 33 Utah State, 33 Boise State, 33 Wyoming. 33.3, obviously. But I think that it's a very evenly divided chance for this Mountain Division. Wyoming looked great. Utah State looked pretty good. Boise, not so much. So maybe a little bit too confident, TK31, 311, but not too bad.
And the only thing that I can say still pushes Boise State over Utah State, and I like the boldness with Wyoming because you really never know with a player like Brett Smith what could happen. The one thing that I think pushes Boise just a little more is one big downfall for Utah State was their inability to play off of Utah's defensive line with Orchard and Riley and their ability to play off that. And if you want to talk about a strong defensive lineman in DeMarcus Lawrence, I really honestly believe that they have those tools onslaught needed to possibly confuse the offensive line there at Utah State. The potential is there. So, there is no for sure. It's so up in the air in that division.
Yeah, it's a 3-team race right now, and obviously right now is a little bit early, but it's still a 3-team race. All right, Mountain West Conference Rock Jocks. Question comes from Braden Green. Is Boise down this year, or is Washington just that good? I don't know how to answer this one. We need to see a little bit more out of Washington. Boise State had a terrible nightmare massacre of a game. I think that Washington will be good. They will be better than they were last year. But I think that Boise is going to have a little bit of a down year this year.
Here's the thing Washington could be good, but a 32-point win over Boise State good. To me, this really all comes down to Boise State's inability to produce on offense. And I'm not saying directly that they can't do it, but they certainly have a lot to prove. 6 points against a team that they should have very easily at least had competition, if not a win on. I'm sorry, but this loss is entirely the blame of Boise. And I wish that I could say, Washington played up. And they did a good job and they played well. But, I mean, this is a Boise State team that has proven that they should be able to stand up under the Chris Peterson era, this is the worst loss that they've had.
Yeah.
You can't just brush that off and work away. You have a lot of proving to do.
I agree. Last question comes from Joseph Cook, who is actually a good friend of mine. He asks, is Fresno's D really that bad? Can they still win the division? You know what? I don't know. I almost had Fresno as a lockdown in the West Division, but San Jose State is going to really threaten them in that position, and you never know what a Nevada could do.
I explained this to you just a little bit earlier. In general, are they that bad? Of course not. Compared with their expectation,
yes,
they're terrible, in my opinion, because this should be an offense that should be among the... defense. My bad, everyone. This should be among the defenses that should be among one of the best in our entire conference. You look at players that at the beginning of the year were challenged for Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of players that have a lot of potential and a lot of strength should not have given that many points up against Rutgers. In comparison to what your expectations should be, you didn't play even close to what you were expected to. But in general, yeah, they're a pretty strong defense. That big scare for them? San Jose State. If they're not going to play well against Rutgers, how is that team going to maintain against Fales and Grigsby and Chandler and sincerely believe that they have an opportunity to maintain that? I think this puts Boise where we talked about that 50-50 or that 30-30, 30-33 mix-up in the Mountain.
Boise or Fresno?
Sorry, I'm just talking about the Mountain Division.
Oh,
just
yeah.
that whole 1/3 or 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same argument right now with Fresno and San Jose State. I don't see how Fresno's drop in efficiency keeps San Jose State out of any potential running to upend that division. I think the potential is there, and it all comes down to the fact that Fresno should be playing stronger. And I understand that this is after one game, but honestly, to me, it was just pure inefficiencies, and there's a lot of proving that defense has. I was not impressed.
Right now, after week one, I would take San Jose over Fresno. But that's just after week one. We could see a complete change. Darren Smith, yeah, he did have an interception in this game, which he's an interception machine, so we could expect that out of him.
Here's the fun part about that little rivalry in that division is their schedules are pretty evenly matched, especially once you get into conference play and how it's weighted. And the Fresno-San Jose State game, last game of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be – that game could be the game of the year, not only in that division, but in the whole conference.
Yeah, because you have no idea if that determines who the conference title team is. I mean, I really think that's going to be a great matchup. But so much left to be desired this week. I really expect to see a lot more excitement out of both teams.
That last week has actually really good matchups. You've got Utah State against Wyoming and San Jose State against Fresno. So we'll see how those divisions pan out. Right now, Fresno is not looking so hot. Thank you for tweeting us at MWC Rock Jocks. We really appreciate your guys' interaction with us. Always tweet us out. Make sure to use the hashtag #AskTheJocks. And let's move on to our section called What Did We Learn?
Absolutely. This is how we end the show every week. We talk a little bit about something on the broadcast that we learned. And Preston, what was the thing you learned this week?
The thing that I learned this week, well, are we talking about this week in general or during the podcast?
Let's just go during the show. What did we learn during the show?
During the show, I learned that trust is hard to rebuild. That's what I learned. We were sorely disappointed in week one. I love all these teams. I love these teams unconditionally, but my trust has been broken and has to be rebuilt.
Preston, I learned that as a football parent, you have to be firm but fair. You have to love, but you also need to know how to mitigate and be stern. To be strong, but to be gentle. I also learned that we still have so much to scream about when it comes to our quarterbacks. And I also learned, and I want everybody to listen, guess who was right about Brett Smith? And I understand he has 11 more games to play, but come on, people.
We were right about Brett Smith, Derek Carr, and Chucky Keaton.
Yeah, you know what? The success of this conference the rest of the season is going to come off of our exceptional players. I still think that we pose the best quarterback threat of all the conferences. I'm excited to see what these guys do.
Amen. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Rock Jocks from the Front Row Network. Tune in to all of our episodes. Watch them on YouTube. Download them on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio. However you want to get to them. We appreciate you guys listening.
And, of course, as always, get on Twitter. Give us some love at MWC Rock Jocks and give us a good follow. If you want to follow the Front Row Network, you can also follow at USU Front Row and give us a follow there. We always love having some more visitors. The more the merrier. It's always fun. Send us your thoughts, your feelings, your requests, your donations, your hugs, your kisses, whatever you want to send us. Send them to us over Twitter. We always want to hear that. But until then, we are excited to have some time to chat with you. Who's excited to have Football Fact back? I know that we are. But until then, thanks so much for listening. This was Rock Jocks. I'm Steve Schwartzman.
I'm Preston Croshaw. Join the climb.